4 men, no last names, owned by the architect. They cut the stone that became the walls of the White House. This was Washington, D.C. in 1800, the capital of the United States. 14 years later, the British burned it to the ground. I reconstructed it. Let me show you. In 1791, George Washington hired a Frenchman named L'Enfant to design the Capitol from scratch. He delivered something modeled on Paris: wide avenues, public squares, a grand mall. The reality was a swamp along the Potomac, mosquitoes, cattle. A diplomat called it extensive swamps hanging on the skirts of a barren country. L'Enfant was fired within a year. He demolished a rich man's house because it blocked one of his avenues. He demanded $95,000. Congress gave him $3,800. He died penniless. His grave now has the best view in Washington, 100 years too late. The plan was to bring workers from Europe. Nobody came, so they used the only labor available, enslaved people from Virginia and Maryland. Over 200 enslaved people built this house and the Capitol. They quarried stone, laid bricks, did carpentry. Their owners were paid $5 a month. They got nothing. When President Adams moved in, the plaster was wet, the house was unfinished, and his wife hung laundry in the East Room. The population of the entire Capitol, 8,000 people, a quarter of them enslaved. No memorial on the grounds to the men who built it. August 24, 1814. 4,000 British soldiers crushed the American defense at Bladensburg so fast they called it the Bladensburg Races, because the army ran. Madison fled. The cabinet scattered. Washington was abandoned. They ate his dinner, drank his wine. Then they set the building on fire. They torched the Capitol, the Treasury, the Library of Congress, 3,000 books gone. Every major building destroyed in one night. But Dolly Madison refused to leave until an 8-foot portrait of George Washington was cut from its frame. An enslaved teenager named Paul Jennings helped save it. It still hangs in the East Room. A storm drove the British out after 26 hours. The scorch marks are still inside the walls. Stand on the National Mall and look south. Today, the Air and Space Museum. In the 1830s, a slave pen. The Yellow House held enslaved people bought from Maryland and Virginia, warehoused in cells until there were enough to ship south. Lincoln said he could see it from his office in the Capitol. Solomon Northup, a free black man from New York, was kidnapped in D.C. in 1841, locked in the basement, beaten, and sold into 12 years of slavery. His story became the film 12 Years a Slave. 2 historical markers stand where the Yellow House was, across from a Smithsonian museum. Almost nobody stops. After the White House burned, the Madisons moved here, the Octagon House, owned by one of Virginia's richest slave owners. Upstairs, Madison signed the treaty ending the War of 1812. Downstairs, enslaved servants used a hidden staircase to stay out of sight. Both are still there. You can walk through them today. Georgetown existed 40 years before Washington, D.C., a Maryland tobacco port founded 1751. When the federal government arrived, this was the only real town. Congressmen lived here because the Capitol was uninhabitable. The roads to the Capitol took over an hour through mud. Georgetown's economy ran on enslaved labor, and Georgetown University was saved from bankruptcy in 1838 by selling 272 enslaved men, women, and children to Louisiana. They didn't publicly address it until 2016. That stone house is 25 years older than the country it sits in. The view, the postcard, the symbol. In 1810, this was a muddy field with a canal running through it, basically an open sewer. L'Enfant designed this as a grand promenade. For decades, it was a swamp that flooded and smelled terrible. The Washington Monument, started 1848, ran out of money, stopped for 20 years. You can see the line where construction restarted. The stone doesn't match. Lincoln Memorial, 1922. Reflecting pool, same year. World War II Memorial, 2004. Everything the world pictures when they think of Washington is less than 100 years old. And the Statue of Freedom on the Capitol Dome, visible from the entire mall, was cast with the help of an enslaved man named Philip Reed, paid $1.25 a day. He was freed 9 months before it went up. What you're looking at isn't what was always there. It's what they built on top. The man who designed this city died with nothing. The White House was built by enslaved men owned by its architect. The Capitol was burned and rebuilt by enslaved people again. And the slave market ran for decades in the shadow of buildings where they wrote, "All men are created equal." Comment which city I should rebuild next. Istanbul is right here.